What is up, and welcome back to another episode of Blood and Beer, the show where we talk blood sport and we drink beer. I'm your host, Matt, and this is our 100th motherfucking episode, baby. We made it! And what better timing for a 100th episode than UFC Apex 100, the 100th UFC Apex show? What are the fucking odds, baby? Cussing up a storm? I don't care. I'm so pumped for this. This is the 100th episode spectacular. We're doing a pick'em for this UFC Apex. Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. And this is the show where we talk blood sport and we drink some motherfucking beer, baby. Today, we're getting white. We're getting trashy. We're drinking some fucking natties. Natty Light. And yeah, UFC Apex 100, what a fucking card it is. You know how we do these pick'ems. If you've seen the show before, we put $1,000 up every card, and we try to make that money back and then some. Right now, we're down $60 year to date. We're up $275 from this last week's card, so we're slowly crawling our way out of this hole. And for our 100th episode, you know we're gonna get way positive. We're gonna double up or something. We're gonna do fucking good. We're going to get into that. We're going to try this beer out, and then we'll get started. I can't fucking wait. And then after the pick'em, we're going to go over just a few things with what we got left on the docket for the year in this combat sports universe with the UFC, with PFL championships, with BKFC having a card this weekend. We got it all for you. So, without further ado, let's try this motherfucker and get into this card. Alright, and we're going to start with the first fight of the night. Antonio Cercoli taking on Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore, he's coming off the Ultimate Fighter. This dude, he had a chance to win it all, but he got hurt for the finales. He lost his fight to Brian Battle, which is who he would have fought in the finales. But he's a good fighter. He's very raw, though. He's strong as hell. He's athletic. He can rip a choke from anywhere if he can get you there. He's slowly coming along, but he's definitely an unfinished product. Still, UFC's trying to build him up, I think, because they think they might have a star with him. He's got a good story. Dude's fought out of his car for years. I mean, he's got a good story, and he's just fun. He's got knockout power. His chokes, if he gets it locked in, you're not getting out of that motherfucker. And yeah, this dude, like I said, he's just tough. But he's got a tough task ahead of him, Antonio Cercoli. And this dude, he's 6'5", 80-inch reach. He's a grappler, though. He wants to get you in a body lock, trip you up, and try to find a submission from there. I don't know how good he really is, though. He got TKO'd by Shara Bullet, but most guys would get TKO'd by Shara Bullet. And it was a very short-notice fight, so Shara Bullet didn't get a chance to go in there and prepare for him. So third round, he made it that far with Shara, and I don't think Tresean Gore is near that level, but with the knockout power that he has, his blitzing ability, he's got a real shot. But Cercoli could also just dominate from the opening bell by doing takedowns and outclassing him on the ground because he's a specialist, and Tresean Gore is more of an MMA fighter. He's not a specialist. He definitely has that knockout power, but he doesn't have anywhere where he truly excels. He's just really good. I don't have a pick for this one right now. The odds, plus 145 Cercoli, minus 175 Gore. I don't like putting my money on Gore, and I really don't like putting my money on Cercoli, so I'm going to sit out of this one. One more fight. If Gore goes out there and looks good, I'll start betting on these close number fights that he has, but right now I'm going to be sitting out of it. So that brings us to our next fight. We got Cortavius Romeus. He's taking on Gaston Bolaños in the battle of the cool-ass names. And Romeus is short as fuck for 135. He's 5'4", but he's fucking stacked. This dude's got crazy submissions as far as just the strength he gets when he gets you locked in. On the ground, he's tough as hell. He can really throw it up from anywhere, and his transitions in the grappling is really spectacular. He's got knockout power, but he really excels in the submission. 5 submissions, 9 wins. So he's got everything that you like to see in an up-and-coming fighter. I just don't like seeing those short, stocky guys. They don't always pan out. Sometimes they get outclassed. But he's fighting a guy that's not a whole lot bigger, and Gaston Bolaños. Bolaños is a pure striker. Point striker, really. He's got some power. He can put you down, but he's not a one-shot knockout guy, and he seems to get tired. He doesn't have a very good ground game at all, from what I've seen in the tape study. So, with him being susceptible on the ground, Cortavius Romeus being a good-ass grappler and strong as fuck, I got Romeus at 100 to win 155. I'm not super confident in that, but we got to make some picks, and this card is fucking a little barren as far as what you can pick because they're close fights with weird odds. Speaking of weird odds, we got our next fight, Cody Stamann He's a plus 230 dog versus Damon Blackshear, minus 285 coming back. And Stamen, both these guys 2-3 in their last 5. They've had a rough go of it. Stamen, he's a striker who likes to wrestle every now and then. He's just kind of a grinder fighter, but he doesn't seem to know how to win at the UFC level. He doesn't always get it done. And he's got an advantage on the feet with Blackshear, but not a huge advantage because Blackshear's got this awkward striking. He lands a lot of volume, and then if he gets you to the ground, this dude is strong as hell. His submissions are insane. He's had a twister in the UFC, I believe. This dude could easily submit Stamen, and on the feet, if Stamen does have a tiny advantage, the takedown threats from Damon Blackshear are going to negate that, I think, and make him have to worry about that and give Blackshear at least even edge on the ground, if not a little bit step up. So I'm dropping 100 on the big favorite, and Damon Blackshear gets us 135 back. So we got 2 chalk picks in a row. And that brings us to our next fight. Charlie Radke, Chuck Buffalo, the most wild card man on the mic. He got up there and said, "Fuck you, FAGGOTs," in Australia when he was getting booed. It was insane. I don't agree with the language, but I love the fucking confidence, the energy to get up there and say, "I'll beat the shit out of all you pussies" on the mic to an entire country. That's what he did when he beat Blood Diamond. And he's taking on Matthew Semmelsberger, a plus 140 dog, Radke minus 170. And Semmelsberger's a fun fighter. He's big as hell for the division. He's got this giant size when he goes out there, but it just doesn't translate. He doesn't have this crazy power or this ability to control his opponents. He hasn't looked too good lately. Not a ton of knockout losses on his record, but he gets caught a lot in the ground. He can get dominated. Now, Chuck Buffalo, he's not a ground fighter, but this dude, thug jitsu, he's just a fucking warrior. He goes out there and puts it on you. He loves to work the body with the dirty boxing. And he can get you, he can knock. Goodness, I lost my voice. He can get that knockout once he starts working that body work because his combination's working from the body and then moving up with that hook to the head. I got Radke in a finish probably, but either way, if we're just picking Radke straight up at the minus 170 odds, we're getting $100 on him to get us 159. And then Mansur Abdul Malik, he's making his UFC debut as a minus 360 favorite versus Dusko Todorovic. And Todorovic, in my mind, is absolute trash, but I don't like betting on these guys making their UFC debuts, especially. I don't know much about Abdul Malik. He's got a ton of knockouts. I think all but one of his wins are by knockout, but we haven't seen him fight top level competition. And Dusko Todorovic could just go out there and be like, "Hey, I know what to do in these situations, in these spots," and fucking wax him. But as a minus 360 favorite, I'm not touching that fight. Keep me away from it. So that brings us to Nicholas Dalby, minus 115 versus Elizu Zaleski dos Santos at minus 105. So this is basically a pick'em. Dos Santos, he's a good fighter. He's, tough as nails. He doesn't go out too easy. And the problem is he's taking on Dalby, who just drains his opponents. He makes every fight a war. He'll go out there and he'll take everything you got in that first round, and then you're gassed from beating the shit out of Dalby. Both these guys are older, 39 for Dalby, 37 for Dos Santos, but Dalby's really aged well. He's just that old tough man. He reminds me of like the old guy in the bar you don't want to fuck with. He could beat your ass, tough as nails. I think Dalby's going to out-tough Zaleski dos Santos. $100 wins you 183 on this at a minus 115 favorite. And now we got one of the fights I'm most excited to see. Reiner de Ridder. You haven't heard the name, then you only watch UFC. He's taking on GM3, Gerald Meerschaert. Reiner de Ridder, minus 300 favorite, plus 240 coming back for GM3. And de Ridder's a former two-time champion, double champ in one. He was I think middleweight and light heavyweight champ. He tested his luck, tried to go up to heavyweight to get the belt, got knocked out. But what do you think? What do you expect to happen when you're a 185 or fighting a heavyweight? So what we do have from De Ridder, he's a decent striker, not the best, but he's got good Dutch kickboxing, and his scrambling, his grappling, his wrestling, it's all so good. He's got great submissions. He can submit anybody from anywhere, it seems. He goes into these jiu-jitsu matches against world champions and beats them. His wrestling, he can get takedowns, his trips, his double legs, it's all there. He's strong as hell. He's really big for 185, and minus 300 favorite makes sense, but he's fighting Gerald Meerschaert, the deadliest man at middleweight on paper. Obviously not the scariest guy, but he's got the most finishes in middleweight history. This dude will go out there kind of like Nicholas Dalby in a different style. He'll drain you by letting you beat him up, and then when you're gassed in that third round, he finds submissions. He just finds a way to finish the fight and steal the win. Super durable. He got super fast knockout by Hamzat, but everybody gets beat by Hamzat super fast. So how do you hold that against him? Coming off a nasty submission in his last fight, I don't have a pick for this fight. I'm just so excited to watch it, see RDR make his debut, and he's going against the deadliest guy at 185 and Gerald Meerschaert. Imagine hearing that. Deadliest guy at 185 is Gerald fucking Meerschaert. So no picky on that one. But it'll be a fun fight. I can't wait to watch it. I'm just going to watch and enjoy because I want to see how RDR looks against this UFC competition. He was really at the top of one championship when one was at the peak of its powers in MMA. They've since transitioned to a lot more Muay Thai fights and a lot more kickboxing. But when one was having fighters in the top of the rankings and stuff, RDR was one of those guys. I mean, he was running through everybody, top dudes over there. And like I said, since they've fallen off, but he's also lost since then against an absolute giant. His only two losses are against Anatoly Malovkin and Gerald Meerschaert. He's not a knockout puncher, and RDR might have what it takes to handle him on the ground. We don't know. GM3 is a fucking nightmare on the ground to deal with. But if you have a good gas tank, and I think RDR will, he's a professional. He's been a champ. He's not going to come in and gas, I hope. But you never know. That UFC, that first fight, adrenaline dump. You might just come out too excited. So with no bet on that, that brings us to Ricky Turcios, plus 240 dog, taking on Bernardo Sapaj, minus 300. Sapaj is 0-1 in the UFC, but he's a really good fighter. This dude, tough striker. He's got really good combinations. He can put it together, and I just think he's gonna I think he's gonna outclass Turcios. Turcios doesn't really get finished, but he also doesn't really finish people. He can TKO you with his volume, but I don't think he's gonna be TKO or outstriking Sapaj. He's got the advantage on the ground, but I don't know if he's gonna be able to get there because Turcios doesn't have great takedowns. He doesn't. He's a fucking fighter. He's a warrior. He's tough to get out of there, and he's always coming forward. So, again, like GM3, if you gas, he's going to jump on and take that win from you. But I don't think that's going to happen with Sapaj. Sapaj is just a really poised striker, and I think he's going to be able to just kind of sit there, at least the first two rounds, get ahead on points. And Turcios might make a rally because he's a wild man. He pushes himself to the absolute limit in there. But I think we're going to see Sapaj win. He seems like he might be a couple levels above Turcios. Turcios, like I said, he's tough, hard to get out of there, just not necessarily winning these UFC fights. So I put a big bet on this one. We got 300 on Bernardo Sapaj to win 400 total. Not a big payout, but I'm pretty confident just that Ricky Turcios is not going to be able to get out of that. Get past the level that Sapaj is. And that brings us to one of the second most enticing fight on the card. We got Miles Johns taking on Cody Garbrandt, former champion Cody Garbrandt. Miles John, minus 150 favorite, Garbrandt, plus 125. And I can't help but think these odds are because Garbrandt's got the name, because people are throwing a ton of money down on him just because he's got the name. You want to see him win because we're all fans. He's a former champ. He's a big deal. But he hasn't looked good lately, and I wonder if the sport's passed him up. He was knocking guys out left and right. He beat Dominic Cruz. But since he's beaten Dominic Cruz, he's been knocked out several times. The chin doesn't seem to be there. And in the fights where he doesn't get knocked out, he's still very defensively liable. I mean, he's open. He's getting hit the whole time. And his grappling really isn't on the level of a lot of these top guys. He's a good wrestler, but he doesn't like to initiate that wrestling. And Miles Johns, this dude's got a pace that he can put on you. He just knows how to win rounds. He's got great wrestling, great cardio. He can outstrike you. He'll point fight you if he needs to. He'll take you to the ground and just control you. I just think Miles Johns, with his fight IQ, with his stamina, with the pace that he puts on you, I think he's going to control Garbrandt for 15 minutes. I got another 300 on this fight, too. The rest of our 1,000 is going to Miles Johns. 300 wins you 500 total. And that brings us to the main event. We don't have a bet on this because we already put all 1,000 up. But why would we put a bet on a plus 475 versus minus 800 favorite? Well, I'll tell you why. Because Neil Magny's the plus 475. Carlos Prates minus 800. And we'll get into him in just a sec. Neil Magny is the ultimate gatekeeper. Sure, he's lost some fights. He's been finished quite a few times. But the dude is a fucking warrior. And guys that are on the up and up, you know, the new risers, the new stars, they always put him against Neil Magny to see if they're the real deal. And 9 times out of 10, it seems like this dude turns them away. He's got crazy reach for the division. He's super tall. His Muay Thai clinch is just, it's devastating. He throws knees, elbows, and he just fucks people up from there. So he'll keep you on distance with his jab and his kicks. And then if you come on the inside, he's going to clinch you up and start throwing the knees. He's got a real shot to beat Carlos Prates. He could start wearing that body out with front kicks and knees to the body when it gets close. But the problem is Prates is a fucking dog. He's coming off a knockout win over Li Jinglang, the Leech. Knockout win. He's one of the fighting nerds. These guys have been on absolute fucking fire this year, and his boxing is just unbelievable. I mean, so much power. The way he mixes his shots up, the body, the head, the hooks, the straights. He has beautiful combinations. He can throw kicks as well, but doesn't do it that much. He's a little bit older for an up-and-comer, but this dude's been fucking just marching through the division. Minus 800 favorite, it makes sense. I'm not betting on it, but don't be surprised if Magny pulls it out, outclasses him, or finishes him with some body shots. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not betting it. I'm not betting it. We're not throwing it on a plus 475 dog when Carlos Prates is as deadly as he is. So that's what we got for the picks for you today, baby. We're going to run through that again. We got Romeus, Blackshear, Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radke, Nicholas Dalby, Fernando Sapage, and Miles Johns. Those are our picks for the UFC 100, UFC Apex 100 on Blood and Beer. 100, baby. So what do we got next? A lot left on the docket for the UFC this year. Combat sports in general. Next weekend after this card is UFC 309, John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Probably a retirement fight for both of these guys. And the legacy that they're going to be leaving behind, I just want to talk about that for a little bit because it's really insane. 2 of the best fighters to ever do it. John Jones across any weight class. Stipe, obviously, one of, if not the best UFC heavyweight of all time. Maybe the best heavyweight of all time. It's really debated. People don't like to give it to Stipe just because, goodness. I really don't know why. He has a great resume. 2 wins over Daniel Cormier, Fabricio Verdum, Alistair Overeem. I mean, this dude's beat the who's of the division at the time he was fighting. And John Jones. What do I got to say about this guy? I mean, Vitor Belfort, Mauricio Shogun Rua, Lyoto Machida, Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans. Just while he was a young gun. Fucking did that. Youngest champion of all time. Most dominant fighter of all time, without a doubt. I mean, nobody's even... You can say the Gustafsson, the Reyes, the Thiago Santos fights were close. They were robberies. Guess what? He fucking won them. And everyone before that was way better than him, he beat the shit out of. And then when we thought maybe he's over the hill and, heavyweight might be a problem, he goes out there and submits Cyril Gahn in a minute and a half with no fucking problem with the most elementary guillotine choke you've ever seen. Just like a reverse neck crank guillotine. I don't know. The dude's a fucking monster. Just the resumes, the records that these guys hold, it's insane. It's going to be euphoric watching this fight. Even if Stipe who I'm a huge fan of, Ohio boy, Cleveland proud. I'm not from Cleveland, but that's my sports teams. And Stipe Miocic was there when we were on top of the world, when the fucking Cavaliers won the NBA Finals, when the Guardians, Indians back then, made it to the World Series, when the Lake Erie Monsters won the AFL championship or the AHL championship in hockey. Cleveland was on top of the fucking world, and Stipe Miocic was right there at the center of it, being the fighter, being famous as fuck as a fighter from Cleveland, a firefighter from Cleveland. I love it. This is going to be a euphoric fight once this card comes around, and we're going to have an awesome show for you when that week comes. But after that, UFC just announced another fight for UFC 310. We got Nate Landwehr taking on Doo Ho Choi, and that fight's going to be fucking nuts. Absolutely insane. Landwehr is just a train moving down the tracks. He's wild. He's throwing crazy shots. He can get knocked out. He can get hit, but he doesn't care. He wants to go out there and put on a show. And guess what? He might get hit, but he's going to get his too. He's going to get his too. He's going to knock your ass out if you give him a chance. And Doo Ho Choi is kind of the same fighter. He's more of a technical fighter, but he's willing to go in there and bang, take the shots. Look at his fight with Cub Swanson. My God. His last fight, he looked great in that one as well. So I can't wait for that. That's an absolute barn burner. This weekend, BKFC, if you didn't check the last show out, they got a championship fight. Jimmy Rivera, former UFC fighter, he's taking on Kai Stewart for the 145-pound championship. And then they also got Julian Let Me Bang Lane from The Ultimate Fighter. He's going to be on that card as well. His 14th BKFC fight. He's looking to break even. He's 6-7 currently, but he's fought some top guys. You know, he lost to Mike Perry in a close decision. It's going to be a fun card. Every card BKFC does is fun. It's hard to keep tuning in when you don't know the guys' names. I can't wait for John Dodson to come back and knock some more people out. But that's what we got for recent stuff that's been announced or stuff that's going on. So what do we have for the rest of the year, you might ask? We have UFC Fight Night 309. I spoke John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. The card's also got Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. We got Bo Nickel versus Paul Craig. It's a stacked card. People can tell you it's not all they want. It's a stacked card. You also got Chris Weidman taking on Eric Anders. Hopefully Chris Weidman's retirement fight. But he didn't look terrible against Bruno Silva besides gouging his eyes out. So that's 309. The next week, we got Petr Yan taking on Davison Figueiredo, former champ versus former champ, 125 champ versus 135 champ, and Figueiredo is really pushing to get that 135 title. He might be able to steal it from the shot from Usman Nurmagomedov with a finish of Petr Yan or a nasty performance. So it's going to be a fun one. And then I assume this will be the co-main event of that card, but Carlos Ulberg will be taking on former title challenger Volkan Ozdemir. That'll be an awesome fight as well. Good striking matchup. Ozdemir's a fucking brick house. Just throws short strikes that knock you out. And Carlos Ulberg, he's kind of like Izzy, where he's, that loosey-goosey, fucking poppy from the outside style. But he's strong. He can knock you out as well. That's going to be an awesome fight. And then we got UFC 310. Right now, the main event, it could change. It could be Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Kamaru Usman. But right now, we got Alejandro Pantoja taking on Kai Asakura, who's going to be making his UFC debut, the rising champ. This dude's dominant over there. Great striker versus a phenomenal grappler in Alejandro Pantoja. It's going to be a fun fucking fight. And this card is just fucking stacked to the teeth, even if we don't add another title fight. We got Aljo versus Movsar Evlov. We got Alexander Volkov versus Cyril Gane. Nick Diaz versus Vicente Luque. It's fun as shit. And then to close the year out for the UFC, we got Fight Night Miami. Joaquin Buckley, number 8, taking on number 7, Ian Gary. It's going to be a fucking banger. Who knows how that fight's going to go. Buckley could get beat up for 4 rounds and then just come in blitzing with that Mike Tyson style that he's got when he's just desperate and sleep Gary. Gary's been rocked before by guys like Song Kanan and others. So it's going to be fun as shit. And then sprinkled in there, we got Mike Tyson taking on Jake Paul the night before UFC 309. We got PFL championships, 6 title fights for $1 million each. That's going to be on November 29th. And if you didn't know about that, I'm not fucking surprised. PFL cannot advertise for shit. It's not even on MMA Junkie when this card is. I don't know if it's a pay-per-view anymore. They're advertising ESPN Plus, but who the fuck knows? These are your championship fights. What do you care about, PFL? What the fuck do you care about? Get this out there. Build up guys like Brendan Loughnane, Impa Kasanganay, Dakota Decheva. Nobody knows this is happening. Have you just completely given up? I'm sorry, I know I always ran about PFL, but how do you run a promotion like this? But that's all I got for you today. This has been my 100th episode, and I appreciate each and every one of you that have supported me along the way. 100 more to come, 200, 300, 900. Wonder where we'll be at our 1000th episode. Will I have more viewers? Will I have a following? I don't know. Probably not. I love fucking doing this, though. I love betting on the fights. I love talking fights. MMA is my passion. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Remember, 100 subscribers. Doing a giveaway. We're at 99 right now, and we've been at 99 for a minute. But I appreciate everyone that supported me. And if you watched it all the way through, let me know your thoughts on the card. What are your picks? What am I super fucking wrong about? Who do you think's going to win? Let me know your locks of the fucking week. And then I can't wait for what we have to come. UFC is going to be cutting it off a little early on December 14th. Last card with Joaquin Buckley versus Jan Gary. But until then, we're in the fucking marathon. We're running downhill. Full speed ahead, baby. So thank you for tuning in for the 30 fucking time. 100th time, actually. But 30th time I said thanks on this episode. I appreciate everybody that supported me. This has been fun as shit. I'm Matt with blood and motherfucking beer.